Hello! Today I'm here to bring you the Try a Story tag. Finally! I've been tagged in this by Katie at Books and Things, and I think I was also tagged a long time ago by Simon at Savage Reads. I will link everyone necessary down below. This was a tag that was adapted by Jen to be a reader short story, but it was originally created as Reader First Chapter, and that was by Malia at the Book Paradise. Again, links down below. So I have finally got enough short story collections to do this tag. I've been meaning to do it for a very long time, but haven't had enough collections behind me. I've now got 5, and I haven't got a short story collection lined up for February. Those of you who've been here a while will know that I do one short story collection every month. So this is how I'm going to choose my February short story collection. So firstly, I will tell you what short story collections I'm going to be reading from. So I've got Bark by Laurie Moore. Laurie Moore is a really interesting short story writer, and she's actually the first person that I started with short stories. She's realist. I like her writing style a lot. I have read her book Self-Help, which I really enjoyed. That was her first one. And I've also read another one by her called Birds of Paradise, which I didn't enjoy as much, but the stories were a lot longer, and it took me a while to get through those. This was when I wasn't doing my actual reading of short stories every month, so I was literally reading short story collections in between other books. It would be interesting to go back to those books and see what my experience of them is, reading them the way I do now. I enjoy short story collections a lot more now, but this is her most recent one, and I've been meaning to get to it for a while. I really do like her as a writer, and I think, as I say, it will be interesting to revisit her now that I'm a little bit more familiar with short stories. Then I have got Michelle Faber's The Apple. This is stories based on the characters from The Crimson Petal and the White, which was one of my favourite reads of last year, and it's probably one of my all-time favourites. I really adore it. I'm a bit worried going into this because The Crimson Petal, it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, and we sort of are left to come to our own conclusions about what happens, which annoys a lot of people, but I actually thought it worked really, really well. So I'm a bit nervous going into this, although I think there's only one short story that actually follows on from the end of the book. I think other than that, it is just stories within that world, so this will be quite interesting. Then I also have a Kelly Link, which is Magic for Beginners. I have never read Kelly Link yet, but I really want to, so I'm looking forward to getting to this one. I know that she's magical realism-y and sort of writes, I think from the stories that I have read from her, because I've read a few online, I think she's sort of a horror-esque writer, so that'll be interesting. I also have Joanne Harris's A Cat, a Hat and a Piece of String. I have not read Joanne Harris before, but I did start reading Chocolat and I had to put it aside because it was just too slow for me. I like a slow read, but it was very descriptive and all about the place, and it just started doing my head in, so I gave that away. But I have now picked this one up, and I've been avoiding this because for some reason I thought it was based on characters from Chocolat, and sort of like The Crimson Petal, it was looking at their lives around the novel. I don't know if that's true. Reading the blurb again last night, I think I might be mistaken there, so it'll be interesting to read this one and see how I get on with Joanne Harris, because at the moment she's a writer that I kind of avoid, so I have been putting this off for a while, so it'll be good to get to that one. And then I also have the Penguin Book of Modern Women's Short Stories, edited by Susan Hill. This has got stories in there from a load of different people, but it was published, I think, in the early 90s, so it's quite old now, but it will be interesting to see how short stories have changed. And also, I love women writers, and there are a few in here that are quite interesting. I know there's a story from Muriel Spark and Jean Rees, both of who I want to get to, so I'm looking forward to that one as well. So I'm going to get started, and I will let you know how I get on. I'm going to start off with Bark by Laurie Moore. So I've just finished the first story in Bark by Laurie Moore, and it's called Debarking. It was a lot longer than I realised. It was like 50 pages, but never mind. I really enjoyed this. It was about a man who has just been through a divorce, and it starts off that he can't get his wedding ring off, and his friend sets him up with another divorced woman, and it sort of looks at this strange relationship, and he's trying to deal with the world and his new relationship and his divorce, etc, etc. It's really good. I love Laurie Moore, and revisiting her has reminded me how much she's really deep and intricate. She almost reminds me, they're very different, but in terms of the level of characterization that they managed to achieve in a small amount of words, she reminds me a bit of Karen Russell in that respect. Fantastic, and I'm definitely thinking that this might be the winner, but we'll see. I haven't read the others yet, so I can't be unfair. So next I will be reading the first story in The Apple by Michelle Faber, and I will let you know how that goes. So I've just read the first story in Michelle Faber's The Apple. I really enjoyed it. It was with Sugar, who is the main character in The Crimson Petal, but it's when she's younger. And it was really heartbreaking. It was set at Christmas time, and obviously they're in impoverished London. She's a prostitute, and there is a boy that works in the house who she is with on this Christmas day. And it was really heartbreaking, but really good. And the tone is the same as it was in The Crimson Petal, so I think I'm really going to enjoy these. That said, it didn't overtake Bark for me at this moment in time. I think probably because I've owned Bark for longer. I haven't had this one for very long, only a few months, so I'm not going to be picking it up next, but I really enjoyed the story and I'm really looking forward to getting to it. Then next I will be reading Kelly Link's Magic for Beginners, and I'll let you know how that goes. So I've just read the first story in Magic for Beginners by Kelly Link, called The Fairy Handbag. This again was really good. It's about basically a girl looking at her grandma has told her all these stories about this handbag that she had, and that when you go into it, you go into like this fairy world, and basically she says that her husband has gone in there and he pops out every now and again, and like one evening in this fairy world is like 100 years in the real world. So when he comes back, he's just as young as he was, but obviously her grandma is aging, and the girl's boyfriend becomes obsessed with the idea of this handbag. And it's basically just about this girl's, we know that her grandmother has died and the handbag has gone missing, and it's about her quest to get the handbag back and why she needs to get the handbag back. It's really good and I really enjoyed it. Again, it was quite long, and I generally do prefer short stories, but it was enjoyable, and I really like the writing in this. It's really little. I don't know if you can see that. I love small writing. So I did enjoy it. I don't think it quite beats Bark for me, but I am looking forward to getting to this when I get round to it. So far, the stories have been really good, and I'm excited about all of these. So, unfortunately, I now have to go out. This has taken a lot longer than I anticipated because the stories have been quite long. But you will be joining future me in a few seconds to let you know how the other two collections go. And I'm back. So, I've just finished the first story in Joanna Harris's A Cat, a Hat and a Piece of String, which is called River Song. I have to say there's just something about Joanna Harris's writing style that doesn't necessarily grip me. I got into the story more as it went on. It's basically about, she visited Africa and saw these children who tried to entertain the Riverside Cafe customers by jumping in the rapids of the river and riding the rapids, and she wrote a story about it. And River Song is about those children, and she sort of looks at their lives. It was okay. It wasn't overly gripping. At points I was thinking that I wasn't going to bother with the collection, but by the end I was kind of won over enough that I might try a few more stories before I decide whether I want to give this away. But I definitely won't be picking it up next. And finally, I'm going to be reading the first story from the Penguin Book of Modern Women's Short Stories, so I will see you in a bit. So I've just finished the first story in the Penguin Book of Modern Women's Short Stories. It was called The Devastating Boys, and it was by Elizabeth Taylor. It was really well written, very racist, surprisingly racist. I don't actually know how old this book is, but not that old, no, 1991, so I'm surprised how racist that story was. But the writing was good, and maybe it was meant to be sort of a poke at society, a bit of a poking fun at society. Hopefully that was what the intention was. But anyway, it was good, it was well written, but I have come to my conclusion, and I think it was a sweep from the beginning for me, to be honest, that I'm definitely going to read Bark by Laurie Moore next month. I'm not going to tag anyone because I think most people have done this by now. I've been waiting to collect my stories, as I say, so I'm quite behind. But if you haven't done this, please feel free to do it and link me down below so I can check it out, and I'll see you next time. Bye!